With that, we'll go ahead and call to order this meeting of Yuba City Unified's governing board. Roll call, all members are present with the exception of President Dung. We have no public comment on closed session agenda items, and with that, we will recess to closed session. Now we'll go ahead and recall this meeting of Yuba City Unified Governing Board back to open session. If we could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Salute. Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any requests for agenda reorganization?
I have some questions on the consent. I don't necessarily need them reorganized, I just have a couple of questions on C and H.
Thank you. All right.
Everything's going.
With that, we'll move forward to the student report.
Good evening to the school board and the audience. Wow, we've made it to the end of another school year, and I've been waiting for this. It's a very bittersweet experience as we say goodbye to our seniors but get ready for the new year. However, we still have 2 weeks left of school. Recently, we had 2 athletes compete as individual qualifiers for the track and field master meet at Davis High School, and I actually see them in the crowd, Emma Tiara and April Anguiano. And in 3 weeks, they will be competing in Portland, so we're very proud of the girls. I was going to mention some of the other athletes, but I'll leave that to Mr. McCauley and their coaches, as they know them best. Our spring sports have therefore wrapped up, and we want to thank all of our athletes and coaches for their effort and dedication in making River Valley proud. Also, our yearbook has finished, and we've started distributing it as well, and I wish you could all see it, because our yearbook staff and our class has put in so much effort, and you can really see it through all the pages. They put in so many hours and dedication, and it looks amazing. So thank you to Mr. England, who is our yearbook advisor. Our Link Crew also recently held its May Day, where they train and meet to prepare for the new year. Link Crew is a program that helps the incoming freshmen transition into high school. The advisors, Mrs. Jensen and Mr. Fischetti, did amazing to prepare all of our sophomores, juniors, who are going to help the freshmen in their transition. Last weekend, River Valley was the host of the annual Yuba Classic Tournament, which was started by one of our seniors last year, who is now an alumni. This tournament featured basketball players from across the state, and even some of our students from River Valley and Yuba City High School competed, and they won some awards as well. Our students from River Valley also helped put on the tournament by volunteering to do schoolwork, book, and even referee. May has been a very busy month with our AP testing, Coachella Spirit Week, that was a great success, and now our Senior Spirit Week. We concluded Senior Spirit Week this Friday with a goodbye rally for our seniors, and it will end with our classes moving into their new year. So the juniors stand up and move to the senior section to signify the transition into the new year. Also, these last 2 weeks will be packed with senior events like our Senior Sunset and Talent Film Awards that feature the movies made in our English classes by the seniors. It's a lot of fun to see all the talent and hard work they put into creating these movies. For the rest of our students, our finals will be on next Thursday and Friday, which will mark the end of the school year, and we will depart for summer break. But our seniors will have on Monday and Tuesday, and then leave for grad practice and graduation on Friday. And so our year comes to an end. And as the year closes and my term as school board representative ends, I would like to thank you all immensely. I've had an amazing experience acting as a representative for my school and learning about the important work you all do overseeing the district. And I hope to see you all again next year, rather at board meetings or at River Valley High School. For next year, I've been elected as the ASB Senior Class President, so I'm very excited for my senior year. Congratulations. Thank you all very much, and I hope you enjoy your summer break.
Good evening, and good evening, audience members. As we reach the final days of the school year, which is very long and hard-working, our seniors prepare for graduation next Thursday and grad practice on Tuesday and Thursday. We have been working hard, studying, getting all of our stuff wrapped up for the end of the year. Underclassmen have been studying for their finals, which are next week, and seniors are getting their finals completed this week. Senior Anjali Davis made it to state for track and field for a really good shot put throw. It was at Clovis High School. And this week we're celebrating our seniors for Senior Sunset with a Spirit Week. Today was Dress as Your Younger Self. Tomorrow is Rhyme with That Reason. So you dress up with your friend, but they're kind of different. So it's like PJ and DJ or Bumblebee and referee. So they're super fun. And then Thursday is Senior Royalty, where we wear our decorated senior crowns and sashes. Then Friday is Walking Yearbook Day, where students wear white shirts and their peers sign them. So Senior Sunset is where our seniors get together for the last time to enjoy making fun memories, playing games, eating food, yearbook signing, and taking a load of pictures. I want to extend a heartfelt thanks to you all for being for being a student representative. I've had an incredible experience and have learned a lot. Your willingness to listen and engage with me means a lot for Yuba City and myself. Thank you all, and I hope you enjoy your summer.
Thank you.
We have a little gift here from the board we wanted to present to both of our student board members, so I'll just bring it over. But thank you for your year of service. We really appreciate your thorough reports and having you.
Yes.
Very much so.
Very much.
Thank you.
And best of luck. All right, moving forward to student recognition.
We have both River Valley and Yuba City High School here today to recognize our spring student athletes. And so I'll just go alphabetically. We'll start with River Valley, and Athletic Director McCauley, would you like to introduce our coaches?
Sure. I don't know what order. Are we just going by the order that's on the agenda then?
Whatever.
So we'll go with boys golf first. Coach Taylor.
I can start with that.
Have you done this before?
Okay, so the boys golf season, as a team, we did not make playoffs. Maybe 3 individuals make playoffs. So Monmouth Peel, Albert Tang, both made it to the first round, which is considered a divisional round of playoffs. They both did well, and then Mark Biggins was the third one who's not here today. He actually qualified out of there, which was really impressive. He competed at the Masters tournament in Stockton and did amazing. So he finished 15th overall out of 113 golfers. I've been telling everybody if he was like a wrestler or a track star, he would have made it to the next level. But because golf is golf and our section is unreal in terms of competition, he didn't make it out. It was 2 strokes from making it out. As a team, really impressed with this year with them. Started off kind of rough. The last league tournament, we finished 2nd overall, which was huge, behind Wood Creek, who won the section title. So we did really, really well. Grew as a team, and proud of the end of their hard work. So.
And this is for you. Yes. Thank you. Can I get a picture?
Good picture, boys.
And then next we got boys volleyball and Coach Amy Lopez.
I didn't know I was gonna have to really speak, so I kind of had to make this. Thank you guys all for having this. I just would like to introduce you to our varsity volleyball team. I'm Amy Lopez, I'm the boys varsity, and I did also JV this year. So these are all varsity, and I'm missing 3. So we're missing Josh and Elijah, who are at the Optimist game tonight, or Optimist practice tonight for their all-star game, so which is pretty awesome. So our team this year put in a lot of work. They all pretty much play club volleyball year round, and it really showed. Let me tell you a little bit about them. They were scheduled 38 matches this season, and that was a lot. We were 28-10 overall. We were 8-4 in league. We tied for 2nd, but because our head-to-head game, we ended up getting 3rd. We made it to the playoffs for the first time since 2018. We made it to the second round of playoffs, beating Nevada Union, which was really awesome for us. We fell a little short of Granite Bay in the second round, but it was close games every single time, and the boys did great. We were disappointed, but we were okay. But the real magic about this team isn't our wins and losses at all. This year, their determination to beat the school records was the most fun to watch. They looked at their old records. I'm sure every single one of them had a picture of the old records on the wall in the hallway, and they were so determined to beat every single one of those records. We even actually, in a game against, I don't even remember who it was against, we took a timeout when our setter got to 500 assists. We took a timeout and celebrated in the middle of the game on his exact 500th set. So that was pretty awesome. So this is their records that they broke this year. So I will read them to you quickly, sorry. So our school record for kills in a season for the past was 275. And this year, Jude Trojan, wave your hand, he got 413.
What?
He smashed it. Josh Trojan, who is his brother, who's not here tonight, for kills in a career was 413 previous, and his was 506. So that was great. But I do have some extra games from him for stats that I still have to put in, so that number is going to grow. So then we got aces per match, and it was past 7 per match. And Alexander Hansen, he had 11 in a match, so that was pretty awesome. He also had the most aces in our season. Previous year, 38. This year, 58.
Wow.
So that was awesome. And then Elvis Ursegi killed the aces for career. It was 45 previously, and it was 83.
Oh, wow.
So, so previous total blocks in a match was 5, and Logan Campbell, he got 8, so that was awesome. Total blocks in a season was previously 45, and Logan had 69. Yes. Total blocks in career previous was 53, and Josh Trojan again had 59, which is awesome. Digs per season. This one's big. So 240 was the digs per season previously, and Elvis killed that again with 353.
Wow.
Yeah. So assists per match. So assists, I don't know if anybody understands what the assists are. Assist, it counts for a kill. So a setter set the ball. If they get a kill, then he gets an assist. So we were very proud of our setter this year, who's Elijah Salala, and he had assists in the season was 433 previous, and he had 1,288.
Wow.
He was nationally ranked in nationally, California, and then like everything. He just took everything. So that was pretty amazing for us. He got the assist per match was 42 previously, and he got 59. And then assist for career altogether for Elijah was 1,668, and previously it was 635. So that was pretty awesome for them. They did an amazing job, and can't wait to see what they guys do next.
Well done.
Yay.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
Can I take a group
Oh,
picture?
sure. You guys, squeeze in. Little
You
in the front.
said you liked it.
Little in the front.
You said you loved it.
We'll stand behind us. Okay. You guys have done this a little bit.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Oh, one more thing. I would like to thank Phil for everything he does for us because we cannot thank him enough. So thank you.
And then next we have track and field, Coach Orange Boyle.
We'll watch it.
You just dropped something. I don't know what it was. No, they were all pointed.
Good evening, board members. Thank you for having us here. This is the River Valley track and field team, and just get a recap of the season. We had a lot of meets this season. Started off Yuba City, great meet hosted by Mount Lynch in the Yuba City program. We saw some studs early on. We had a freshman go under 60, second in the 400, easily around 56, I believe. And from there, we've got progressed into other meets, big meets that we went to this year. For example, the Sac State Invitational, which is just the top 32 athletes in their event in the whole region. A lot of people from Chico, Bay Area, Sacramento come, and we had a couple of athletes compete there. Big meets throughout the season. Dealt with some early injuries, recognizing on young faces, figuring out what the sport is and how transition from middle school to track and field at the high school level. But everything that they prepared for really comes down to the championships. And we had some stellar performances. I'll just list some of the athletes that performed. For example, the first one I have, April, coming back from a 5-week injury, really set her back, but that didn't hold her back. She was able to get help the team in the 4x800 get third in the mile and get second in the 32. So all conference and track is just the top 2 in each event, and she was one of those athletes that was able to get all conference in the CBC, which is a tough league. And with the R also helped the 4x8 get third. She got third in the 3200 and got fourth in the 1600. Nevaeh Brown also helped the 4x8. Was top 6 in the 16 and then was top 4 in the 32. We also had Taylor Rogarilla, who represented the team really well. Had a lot of personal bests with her female sprinter of the year. Did really well this season in the 400 as well. Also helped the team at the master level in the 4x8. Autumn Bonds was key as well. She was able to run in the 1600, was top 9 in that event. And also top 8 in the 3200, also competed at the master level. We have Calvin Beaupry, who was a sectional qualifier in the 1600, in the 3200. Jose Collazo, with a sophomore, ran 10:22. In the 32 and in the mile, he ran 4:45 as a sophomore, which is the second best time in school history. As a sophomore, Renee Garcia, a senior, helped the team in the 4x800. We also had Kevin, who I mentioned earlier, broke the school record in the 400, running a 52 minute, 52 low in that. He has big things ahead of him as he continues. Austin Eberhardt in the 1600 runs sprints and distance, which is unheard of. Most people one or the other, but for him to do both was exceptional. He did great in the high jump, competed there at the Sacramento King divisional meet as well, and was a part of that 4x400 team. Trishawn Bishop, a senior who's going to be competing at Yuba College next year, also part of that 4x400 team that went to divisionals. We also had Dave Walker, who's a sophomore, who just decided to try track and was excelled tremendously. Some of the highlights for the season, just some of the athletes that were able to move on and do well. April competed at the Division II championships and was able to get third in the 4x8 team that she helped anchor, third in Division II in the 1600, and third in the 3200 as well. Ranked one of the tops in the Division II as a whole, and lucky to have that. She's only a junior. Emma also competed at the master meet. She was 4th overall. No, she was 6th overall in the 32, and then she was 7th in the 1600, and she helped the team get 4th in the 4x8. Those were the two. Oh, Jasmine also really close on making it to the master meet this year. She got 7th in both shot put and disc. She was really close. Because top 6 make it. But another thing about Jasmine was she was 2nd in the discus, I believe the 3rd in the shot put this year conference. So she was our 2nd member that got all league CBC, which was an honor. Both of those ladies represented River Valley at the CBC level really well. we had 2 athletes make it to the master meet. Well, we had a 4x18 that made it, which was representative of Autumn, Taylor Rogarillo, Emma, and Nevaeh, who ran the 4x8 for us. And then we had 2 individual qualifiers. April was 13th in the mile, which is all divisions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 combined. So she's 13 overall, and then she was 15th in the 32, so she qualified in 2 individuals. And then Emma Fiara also ran individual event at 3,200 and was 13th overall in master meet. And we had a really good season. A lot of young people were returning a lot. I think we're only losing a handful of seniors, but a lot of returners are excited for what this team can continue doing, especially with seniors. We still have a couple athletes that are going to head out to Portland and do a race there. But we're excited to see where the program's heading, and we're fortunate for the seniors that help guide the underclassmen and get to take the program over next year. And again, as iterated by the volleyball coach, I mean, I probably text, call, go as early as probably 6 a.m. and as late sometimes it's 10 or 11. So he's a great athletic director for us, and we wouldn't be as successful without him. So Phil, thank you for everything. Thanks to these kids for allowing me to coach them for another season this year. And thank you for hearing us out. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Taylor? Yes, come on. Don't be shy. Renee? Great job. Kevin? Austin? Got it? Sean. Well done, everybody. Well done, everyone.
I'm sorry to swing around this.
I did shotgun. I've got the letter jacket. So
Do you want to elaborate more on that?
look at these pipes. Don't judge my pipes.
Nobody's judging your pipe.
Next board meeting, where you at?
Okay.
A little bit tighter.
Thank you. One more. Trust me, he was more shocked than I was. You're shocked.
Bye-bye, congratulations. And from, Phil, is that all your coaches and teams?
Yep.
And from YC, we have Assistant Principal Sergio Flores to, I don't know, coaches and athletes.
Good evening, members of the board, parents, students. I'm here to recognize all of our incredible athletes, our dedicated coaches, and supporting families. So I would like to start off with our boys tennis. So we have Angela Prager.
Oh, this is tennis, yes.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Last year I was assistant coach, and then this year I was head coach, and we only had 4 players for most of the season. We had 5 eventually around halfway through the season, but overall it was a pretty decent season. Starting off, we had some freshmen, some new players, but that's usually what it's like for tennis. And so, really in our matches, didn't win that many games, but at least towards the end of the season, most of the players started winning at least a couple games or have closer sets, closer matches. And so I think all in all, should have a couple of players coming back next year. Like I said, we have some freshmen, and I think could definitely it's off to a good start and can definitely get better. And then, like I said, Ezra was he was our number one, played number one for the whole season, and he won half his matches. And then even some of the matches he did lose. Like, we were pretty close. Some of the matches went to third sets, and they only played 10-point tiebreakers, and those were pretty close. And then, so he won half his matches throughout the season, and then at the year-end playoffs, he won. He won his first round match, but they got a little unlucky because he had to play the number one seed from Wood Creek. But like they say, it's sometimes it's the luck of the draw. So a little unlucky with the draw he had, but like I said, for the most part, try really hard, won most of his matches, and then the ones he didn't, always put up a good fight. And that's about it.
Are they contributed to you? Yeah. Make a little picture.
Thank you very much.
All right, next I'd like to recognize Caden Bullock. Here. So he was our first team All CBC for baseball. He did a wonderful job, and so he's a senior, and he'll be graduating, moving on for this year. But we look forward to our upcoming juniors and sophomores that are coming up next year. Also for softball, we have 3 students: Victoria Hernandez, who was a CBC Defensive Player of the Year; Alexia Alvarez, first team All CBC; and Alexia Del, also first team All CBC. And track and field, we had Jewel Perry, first team All CBC, along with Mia Beltran, Ariana Lopez, Taya Beltran, Mia Heights, Riley Brown, and Angelique Davis, first team All CBC. So we have a great track and field team. So we look forward to seeing most of them for next year. We do have 2 seniors that are moving on, but the rest will be here with us. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I get to present something as well tonight, a very special honor. So I received this in the mail and I have an award. So this was on behalf, I'm going to read a portion of it. On behalf of the San Francisco 49ers, the NFL Foundation, and the Inside Out Initiative, we are presenting your athletic administrator, Phil McCauley, with the Inside Out Leadership Award. Phil has successfully completed the Inside Out Professional Learning Series to develop his capacity to intentionally lead a purpose-based sports program where students are connected to transformational coaches in a culture of belonging for their human growth and character development. And Phil did this on his own time. And so, from the Inside Out, Phil has received this award. Very So congratulations, because I know that this was, you did it on your own time,
Sure.
and you did it your own initiative, and it's pretty impressive. So I was surprised this came to me, and I wanted you to be recognized.
All right.
So I'm presenting this to you on your
Awesome.
behalf. So
Thank
just-
you.
Okay.
Big Phil.
Good morning.
I don't need to give a speech, do I?
Yes.
So just a little bit about the Inside Out initiative. I've been taking webinars for the last year and a half, 2 years. And it's, obviously the goal in athletics is to win, right? We all want to win. That's kind of the goal. But it's bigger than that. There's purpose to that. And, putting, great coaches with our kids and leading them to great young people in life and going on and doing great things here in our community and throughout the world. So, kind of the why behind everything. And so in the next couple of years, starting next year, and I've already talked to our coaches and stuff, they're going to be involved with the Inside Out initiative, and then our kids too. We're forming a captain's council next year. We have intervention, which is called Falcon Hour, once a week. And so once a month, I'm going to take those kids from Captain's Council, and with the Inside Out initiative, they have some lessons designed specifically for them to help them be better leaders on campus as well. And then also too, I've developed some Google Forms, questionnaires, postseason questionnaires for all of our student athletes and our parents and our coaches, reflecting on how the season went and giving me data for things that could be better and things that we can improve. So thank you, Doreen. Thank you, board. Thank you, cabinet. And thank you for continuing to support our student athletes at River Valley and throughout the district. So thank you for your time, and I appreciate it.
Well done.
And,
Thank you. You're a rock star.
Have a great evening, guys.
Thanks, Phil.
All right, thank you to all those athletes and their supporters coming out tonight. I'll give you a moment if you want to. I need to take a step back.
Thank you.
Bye, Ezra. I'm good. I'm busy teaching. You should catch up sometime, play tennis. Yeah, sure. All right. Your dad has my number. Tell him to text me, okay? All right. All right. Bye, Ezra. Bye, Helen.
Bye.
All right. Okay. Nutrition.
Yeah, so I'd like to welcome Chelsea Slattery. She is the director of student nutrition, and she's been doing some really awesome things. So she's going to share some stuff, and she's now famous today too. So.
She's on the news.
Yeah, for the first time on real TV, so I was a little nervous. It's been a long day. So good evening, members of the board and YCUSD community. As Scott mentioned, I am the director for the Nutrition Services Department. Our team is comprised of about 90 staff members who work very hard, so incredibly hard to feed our students in the Yuba City Unified School District. And as you all know, I love numbers, so I'll give you some more. But so on average, our crew is preparing about 4,570 breakfasts each day. We're also preparing close to 7,000 lunches on the average, and then we do a supper program, and on average we do about 985 suppers each day. So when you add that up over 180-day school year, they're doing over 2.3 million meals per school year, and that's not including our supper program, which we have. We end school on Friday and have the weekend, and we're back with summer meals on Monday. So. We've got a really amazing crew, and I'm really fortunate to have so many great staff members that make the food go around the district and beyond. We actually service another 5 sites outside of Yuba City Unified too. So tonight I'm here just to share with you all a little bit more about some of our farm to school and wellness initiatives that we've been working on over really kind of the last 4 to 5 years. And so Doreen has been asked me to come share a little bit more with you all of what the vision is, what we've been doing, and kind of where we hope to see the program go over the next few years. So within our department, we've established a vision, where Nutrition Services aims to establish a sustainable district farm where our students can offer engaging outdoor learning opportunities, encourage healthy eating, and help students better understand where their food comes from. And so the why are we interested in this? And really it's because it's it's a win-win for everybody, for the farmers, for the community, the students, and there's just so many benefits that are associated with the farm to school initiatives. And we're also just in such a great area for this in Northern California. So some of the things that we're currently doing, we've actually for over the last, it's been about 15 years, we purchased locally grown foods from farmers in Yuba, Sutter, Butte, Colusa counties. We are purchasing local protein sources, working with local butcher shops. We have been implementing the fresh fruit and vegetable program for several years, which is a grant-funded program through the California Department of Education. We recently started implementing student and community farmers markets. Our scratch cooking, so we've been doing scratch cooking in our district for years, more so than a lot of the districts in the North State, but we actually have some funding this year, the Kitchen Infrastructure and Training Funds, and part of that is that when we opted in, we agreed that we would be serving 40% or more scratch cooked meals. So our goal is for 40% of our menu items each week to be scratch cooked, which we are far exceeding that 40%, where our goal actually for next school year is 75% scratch cooked. We're doing nutrition and garden education with the help of some of our partners. We've got several school gardens going on. Actually, part of this presentation is like a needs assessment that we did, and I'll show you guys some of the different things that are going on. And then the hydroponic flex farms is a new thing that we started this school year. So we currently have 5 of those across the district. So if you're wondering what a flex farm is, here's some photos of it up here. So it's a hydroponic tower essentially. And so it kind of runs like a fish tank, and then it has a light in the middle of it. And these can be grown indoors. So we've got one over at Linkcrest, we've got one at Butte Vista, and we've got 3 out there. And then these are some of the meals that they have, our cafeteria staff have made with the lettuce that's been harvested from these units. These are pictures from some of our student farmers markets. So we began implementing these in 2022. So this is year 2 for us. So far we've had 12 farmers markets, and it's anticipated we've reached over 7,900 participants with those farmers markets. And then this is just the first phase of the program for Farm to School. So this is something that I personally am very connected to. I actually helped establish the Berry School Garden before I worked for the district with the Lowe's grant that I applied for through the University of California Cooperative Extension when I was employed with them. And so we want to continue within the department to develop these farm to school plans. We've been looking at different grant opportunities. We've actually been sought out by California Department of Food and Ag, and they're really highly encouraging us to apply for their grants because they've seen some of the stuff that we've been doing. We would like to look into establishing a farm to school program team, and then tour other districts, which we've already kind of started doing, just to kind of see what other districts in this area are doing. Phase 2 of it is we really would like to determine the location for a district farm, and as I was doing our needs assessment, I realized that Yuba City High School already kind of has one. So we're thinking when we start to do a little bit more farm to school initiatives that maybe we could pilot something in something that already exists. Long-term vision is determining a location for a district farm where we could host field trips and have students come out and learn about scratch cooked food items, how to grow things like wheat, and then incorporate them into like tortillas and bread and muffins and things like that. And then in designing a engaging outdoor learning area, I've been working with David Haggard, who's our chef, and we have plans for a mobile kitchen in the future. So that's the next thing on here is designing blueprints for a mobile test kitchen, and we'd like to have a bakery within that mobile test kitchen for making things like pastas, breads, muffins, and tortillas. And then phase 3 is scheduling harvests at the district farm. So right now what we do, so part of our funding is if we want to spend money on farm to school initiatives, we have to show measurable outcomes. So all of the gardens that we have, the hydroponic farms we have, when we do harvest, we weigh everything. So right now we're at about 600 pounds of fresh produce that we have grown and weighed and incorporated back into reimbursable meals in the school meal program. And then we'd love to just design a experience for Yuba City Unified School District students to be able to come out and see these things that are happening and be a part of it. So scheduling field trips might include partnering with CTE programs, which I know somebody had asked about that in the beginning of the school year from one of the board members. I don't recall who it was, but we actually this year started partnering with CTE programs, and we've had their students volunteering in some of our kitchens. So they're getting that real life hands-on experience by working alongside our food service staff. And we'd like to partner more with their hospitality programs and their FFA programs. And then establishing a district-wide compost program is something, again, that we would like to move towards doing. We do have one compost program going on at Berry School right now. And then this was just an idea that was proposed to me by a local wheat farmer. So I have had a individual come to me and ask about the possibility of growing wheat on district property. And he's working with another district to do this in Lincoln. And so I just wanted to share the idea with you because it may come in the future where we may ask for approval for that, but that comes with the farmer is looking at applying for grant funds through the California Department of Food and Agriculture. And what he shared with me is that if you have about 8 acres of land, you could potentially grow about 20 to 25,000 pounds of grain on it. So, and it's pretty, he said it's like it doesn't really need a watering system, and it's pretty self-sustaining and easy to grow wheat, which I personally don't know a whole lot about, but it was a kind of a neat idea. And then our triennial assessment, so every 3 years the Nutrition Services Program is required to do a triennial assessment to assess the implementation of the school wellness policy across the district, and then we have to report it publicly. So I just wanted to share with you all that this has been done. It did in the 2024 school year, so we actually just did it this spring. The last time we did it was in 2021. So if you're interested in seeing what our schools are doing, this is all available on the website. And each one of those tabs, if you click on it, it gives you a PDF of the results for all of those assessments that were done. A quick little synopsis here. So back in 2021 for the elementary schools, we did this, and this was right, as you all remember, after COVID when schools were shut down. So average percent of possible points was about 56% across elementaries. And as you can see, there was a significant improvement in the elementary schools, so they're up to about a 70% on average. And there's 8 sections within it. And we were able to identify just by looking at this that school gardens and nutrition education were 2 of the main things that we're lacking in our district that we'd like to work with our wellness committee to come up with some more initiatives to enhance those areas. And it was kind of the same thing in the, so there's an elementary and a secondary. So for the secondary, so this is for our middle and high schools, they were at about a 55% average percent points possible, and they've improved to a 64%. So we saw a slight improvement there. And again, you can see the school gardens were only measuring about 27% and nutrition education at 20%. So in the needs assessment that we've been conducting after doing this, we're just gonna be going around the schools and seeing like what do the schools have and how can we improve them. So this is Berry School. You can see in 2018, it was just an empty lot. And now it's evolved into a full garden. We've got trees and plants, and there's stone fruit trees, avocado trees, and there's all kinds of plants out there, and irrigation. The Park Avenue, they have a kids club giving garden over there, and that's been run primarily by their school liaison. And I think it was school readiness program. I'm not 100% sure who else in charge about that. They work with the Master Gardeners and with Cooperative Extension there. This is new phases of Andres Caperos, where Rocco is working with Project Blue Zones and Say Love, and so this just went in this current school year. This one here is Yuba City High School. So Yuba City High School has both a garden. The garden's primarily run by their special education classes. And then they also have their little district farm. So students have animals housed on there, and they've got a greenhouse, and we really want to partner with them to try to find a way to get the students more involved. So wait for like FFA to be able to get their hours in and partner with us for a way that maybe we can grow food and incorporate it back into the school meal program. So we've been talking about maybe doing like a salsa garden and then incorporating those salsa recipes back into the high schools, like for their burritos and tacos and things like that. So this is River Valley High School. They primarily use their greenhouse for their floral club, and then they do plant sales as well. And then Terra Buena has a couple small garden beds through their county classes. And then Lake Crest, so we just recently installed the hydroponic farm there, and we'll be doing a harvest with them next week before the end of school. We've been working with, I think it's a 3rd grade class there, so it's been fun to get the students involved in that. And then this is the Butte Vista Hydro Garden. We actually just harvested last week, and then we had a school-wide barbecue on Friday where we incorporated the lettuce back into the salad bar and onto the cheeseburgers. So, and then this is just showing a tally of all of the different farms across the district and the number of pounds that have been grown during the current school year. Our goal for next year is 2,000 pounds, so. So that's about it. So I just wanted to kind of share with you all some of the fun and exciting things that we're doing and give you kind of an idea of where we hope to go. And if you guys have any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for feeding Feather River Academy. That's where I work.
You're
You
very
guys supply
welcome.
our breakfast and lunches. We appreciate it.
Yes, because you're serving how many other districts right now?
So we do New Extra, Twin Rivers Charter, YCUSD Charter, Feather River Academy, and Arrowstone.
And ATP, adult transition, yeah,
Yeah,
ATP
so
as well.
6, I guess.
Yeah.
They're
Good job.
busy.
We appreciate it.
And we have 22 sites and 18 school sites, so 30 total. It is a lot, but
It's a
it's
lot.
great. So
Thanks,
thank you all for
Chelsea.
having me.
Thank you. Moving forward to the capital program management presentation, the developer fee justification.
Yeah, so I'd like to invite Kathy Domenico up. Kathy is our financial advisor for the district. She's presented to you a couple times before. Last time we presented the developer fees for approval, and there was some discussion on that. I thought Kathy would be a great person to kind of go through the developer fee study, justification study, and also just answer questions that the board might have on this topic. And so I'll let Kathy go.
Okay, thank you. Good to see everyone tonight. As Scott mentioned, I just wanted to provide you briefly with more detail and some context for developer fees, and then of course open it up for questions from the board. We'll start with just some background. And I'm gonna spend a little time on the background because I think this is most important to give you an idea of the context of school developer fees. Developer fees are fees charged on new construction to mitigate their impacts. So development impact fees are charged by all different types of local agencies, cities, counties, special districts. So for example, a city is gonna charge an impact fee for infrastructure like water or roads or sewers or park construction or fire station construction, any of those types of public facilities, government buildings. Of course, schools can also charge impact fees, but unlike other agencies, school districts are actually limited on the amount that they can collect by the state. The state actually caps the fee in what we call a statutory fee. And every 2 years, the state adjusts that fee based on changes in construction costs. And they use an index to determine whether construction costs have increased. In fact, in the past, construction costs have actually declined. We're not really in that kind of environment right now. The fees were most recently increased in January, and they increased by 7.84%. The previous increase was over 17%, which kind of tells you, and I think when we talked about the master plan, we talked to you about how expensive schools are and how rapidly those costs are increasing. The developer fee limits reflect that type of increase. The thinking though behind why school fees are capped has to do with the concept of a three-legged stool. I know that sounds really weird, right? The state envisions that schools are funded from a three-legged stool. One leg is new development through developer fees. Another leg is state funding, state grants. And the third leg is local funding, typically in the form of general obligation bonds, although in theory you could use your own general fund. I don't know how much room most districts have in their general funds, so usually that falls back to something like local general obligation bonds. So the state is basically saying, we're gonna limit the amount you can charge because we don't want the full burden to be on the backs of new development. And that was through a negotiation with the Building Industry Association several years ago. Oops, I'm skipping ahead. There we go. There are some legal requirements for any public agency to justify a fee. They're called nexus requirements. And this is just a listing of the 5 requirements. In order to justify a fee, you must create a study that goes through each of these components And it's somewhat technical and a little bit repetitive in nature, but the fee study is based on certain state standards and justifies a nexus that is then adopted by a governing board in order to impose fees. And your district most recently adopted a developer fee study back in 2021 that justified the maximum authorized fee that the state allowed of $4.08 per square foot of residential construction and 66 cents per square foot of commercial industrial construction. And you can just see some of the historical collections. Last year, the district collected about $500,000 in developer fees, $700,000 the year after that. But if you look back, there's some lower numbers also, kind of the COVID year of about $40,000. So developer fees aren't a huge funding source for the district, but they are directly related to the amount of new construction happening within the district. Essentially, in order to justify a fee, there are two main components to the analysis. The first is capacity and estimated enrollment from new development. So when you're looking through a fee study, you're going to see kind of a prescribed calculation. We first look at the calculated school capacity, and I say calculated because if I put these numbers in front of a school principal, they'd tell me this isn't true. It's because the state provides us with guidelines and standards for how to calculate available classrooms and what the loading standards are. So based on the state formula, you have defined capacity, and then we use CBEDS, your enrollment from the second week of October, in order to determine what the enrollment level is by grade level. We then look at the projected students from new development, again using state standards for student generation rates. So we're looking at the number of new homes anticipated in the district and the anticipated students for the state for how many kids will come out of those new homes. Those students are incorporated into your enrollment numbers and compared to capacity to determine the number of unhoused students. That's kind of part one of justifying developer fees. The second part is to determine the facilities needs. And again, we keep going back to state standards. So when we were talking about funding before, I mentioned that the state funding program is kind of like an Alice in Wonderland conversation. We have the reality of what things cost, then we have the way the state tells us that things are supposed to be calculated. And so the developer fee study kind of melds these two things together. So we look at the unhoused students, and for a developer fee study, you're assuming that you're going to construct portions of schools. Do we construct portions of schools? No. But that's how the developer fee justification works for these statutory fees. So based on the number of unhoused students, you would need 0.09 elementary schools and 0.12 high schools. So in reality, what are we going to do? We're going to add classrooms to existing schools in order to fill these, create these spaces. But when we're looking at a state justification, we actually estimate the cost of school construction based on what the state thinks schools cost. We also need to take into consideration one of the legs of that three-legged stool, and that's how much the state is going to provide in state grant funding, and that's deducted out of the cost to determine an unfunded school construction cost. So essentially, based on the estimated students from new development, the available capacity that you have at the district, and the number of unhoused students, and the portion of that that's not funded by the state, you have a cost of about $13.7 million that needs to be funded from new development. So to translate that into a fee, you have to then make some assumptions related to the number of units and the size of the units, because developer fees are charged on a per square foot basis. Not all homes are the same size. So we use the average size in your district of the new units constructed, which is about 2,600 square feet, in order to determine the facility's cost per square foot. Your district actually justified a fee of $12.89 per square foot of residential development. And if you were any other agency, you would be justified in charging $12.89 per square foot of development. But I mentioned earlier, the state caps that. So even though you can justify that level of a fee, and if it was a sewer, you could charge that. We can't here. We are capped by what the state sets the fee to be. The same concept applies to commercial, and there's a complicated table in the fee study, because again, the state sets the standard for how we can calculate what the commercial fees are. So locally, we use your cost per student, but then apply several ratios that were set actually years ago, back in the 2000s, related to how many employees per square foot based on the different types of commercial development, and ratios for the number of employees residing in the district, because the theory behind commercial development is commercial development does generate kids, but not at the same level as residential development. So people that are employed within a particular area, if they don't live there, may bring their students to schools where their businesses are located. So that's the summary of the commercial square footage, but again, just like the residential, the commercial fees are also capped. So your district is actually, has justified developer fees in excess of the statutory fees that are set by the state. Therefore, you are justified, based on those nexus requirements that I mentioned at the very beginning, to charge residential developer fees of $5.17 per square foot and commercial developer fees of 84 cents per square foot of commercial and residential new construction. So this isn't a fee that is charged on existing homes or businesses. This is if somebody's gonna pull a building permit to build a new unit or build a new commercial building. That's when these fees would apply. When we implement the fees, if the board wants to move forward, we need to notice a public hearing, and then the board would hold a public hearing. At the conclusion of the public hearing, the board is able to consider a resolution to actually implement the fees. And you may begin collecting the fees no sooner than 60 days after the adoption of that resolution. And there are some legal requirements for how to track and account for those fees. I also want to put this into a little bit of context with your master plan. This is really a small piece of the overall facilities master plan funding plan. If you think about what you can use developer fees for, they can be used for the replacement of old portables that have exceeded their useful life. So if there's a portable classroom that's been on a campus for more than 20 years and has not been modernized, so it's really deteriorating. From the state's perspective, it's exceeded its useful life and is not available to accommodate students from new development. Therefore, you may use these funds to replace those old classrooms with new buildings to accommodate those students. Or you could use it simply for new classroom construction, but these fees must be used for capacity purposes. It's also just, as you think about it, a mechanism for new development to pay its own way. It helps to ensure existing taxpayers aren't bearing 100% of the burden of the cost of new development. So that's just kind of the general concept and how it fits into your master plan, but frankly, it's a small piece of that overall master plan. That unfunded piece, so we've got the developer fees you can charge based on the state, you have the state funding that was already included in there. You still have about $7 a foot that would need to be funded from other local sources if you're building new classrooms. So there is a shortfall, and your district doesn't have a local funding source for that shortfall. So how do you accommodate those students? Well, you're really just trying to fit them into the existing facilities you have and doing your best based on the funding that's available. So that's kind of the practical implementation of that. So with that little overview, I wanted to make sure, see if you had any questions, and it doesn't necessarily need to be on the presentation, but any questions on fees in general or the implementation of the process of the fees?
So I'll just say, at this time we have, there seem to be some questions about, will this slow the growth of development in Yuba City? And also, what are other districts doing?
Yes.
So we came out shortly after the new fees were approved, and a lot of districts hadn't increased their fees yet, so we were more of an early adopter at that point. But since that time, we just did a list of neighboring districts. So these are the districts that have moved to the new $5.17 rate. Gridley, Marysville, Twin Rivers, Woodland, Rockland, Thomas, Chico, Plumas Lake, Wheatland. There are a few that are still at last year's rate, Orville and Washington Unified. I imagine they'll be popping up soon, I just don't know when. There are a few outliers though, which are, I don't know the politics behind them, but Sacramento Unified is at $3.36. Davis is at $2.97. But those are really those are the two outliers that I see on this list.
I didn't hear you mention
Live
Yuba
Oak
County or,
Live Oak or Sutter,
or
done anything?
Marysville or.
You said Gridley.
Marysville's at the max, so since our last board meeting, they increased theirs.
Okay.
I didn't include Live Oak, they're smaller, I just didn't include them, but
Okay.
I can.
No, I just was curious, because Gridley, you said Gridley did. They went up to you mentioned
Gridley's up at 517.
And some are actually higher. So what I didn't mention is level 2 fees. Some of you
Oh,
think
that's
that
right.
lesser classes are higher than that. These are the statutory fees. There are exceptions. Again, state law, there's exceptions every time I turn around. There are exceptions to the statutory fees. So certain districts meet qualifications to levy more than the maximum. They have to follow a different set of laws for how to justify that. Your district does not meet that requirement. You don't have the components in place to charge more than the maximum. But there's a handful of other districts, and I'm just going to, Western Placer's one that I know just approved theirs last board meeting for more than the statutory rate.
Any questions?
I don't think I have any questions, but I do want to point out the disparity between the enrollment trend as we discussed on our second interim on March 12th, 2024, are projected versus what Capital PFG has put together, which isn't following, again, they're using their state formula as provided by the Sacramento honchos. But when we look at real numbers, we're at about an average of a 2% bleed year over year for enrollment. So and we have had some new development here. Not a lot, not a ton. I mean, we do see a lot more development. And I don't know, I know, again, the state formula, as she said, but is the average house size that's going in now really 2635, or is that, I don't know that that's a real number.
That is your average based on the assessor's tax roll.
Right. Okay. All right. But anyway, that was just.
I think the one thing I also want to point out that, you know, especially doing the facilities master plan is, and Kathy mentioned it, our district has an extraordinary amount of classrooms that are in temporary housing, like
Right,
portals.
right.
So these, I mean, so like, if we might even have a case for level 2 fees, to be honest with you, but I don't know. I don't know, you know, how that all works. But all I'm getting at is these fees, if we, you know, can go towards making improvements to our capacity issues with the 40% temporary housing. You know, I mean, this is, you know, so I would definitely, obviously, this is not an action item.
Right.
This is an education item.
Yep.
But I would absolutely recommend that the district moving forward, at a minimum, hit the maximum fees here, because it doesn't cover it covers a small portion of what our need is. I mean,
Right.
a very small portion.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's not just I understand this isn't an action item, and I won't wax poetic on it, but it's not just something that's all in and of itself, like we just put this on this unnamed third-party developer. It does have repercussions within the development of our community, and again, like I've said before, we get 0% of the fees from developers who decide to develop elsewhere.
Well, that's a good point, but so the question is then, do developers like good schools, or or is the fee more important? I mean, I would contend that they want very strong and good-looking schools in your community, but, you know.
No, I agree. I mean, you bring up an excellent point, and also I think that we also know whatever we charge developers, it's not like they absorb that. That will be passed down to the consumer.
Yes.
And then with, you know, rising mortgage rates, and as previously, you know, mentioned, the rising building costs, it's just becoming increasingly more difficult to own a home in California,
And maintain a school district.
and maintain a school district, I know, right? So we just want to be thoughtful about it. But I do appreciate the information. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
It is, it's crazy. I certainly went into it.
If you want to, we have the choir performance prior to the.
They better my stuff.
Seniors getting ready for finals, just think about that. So, you will recognize from the retiree reception, Linda Robinson. So Linda, has brought some of our, students that are in the choir to perform, and
Yay!
so she asked if we could kind of adjust the schedule, and of course, to have our students come and perform, I've heard them, they're pretty impressive, so I'm gonna turn it over to you, Ms. Amy.
Yeah, so this is actually my little chamber choir, and so there's 4 of them: Mia, Sadie, Lexi, and Talia, and they're going to sing Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy.
No way, Andrew's sisters, come on, let's go. Can I sing with you?
Yeah.
This is an interactive performance.
Guys, grab me one of those chair sets for me. Yeah, then I can just sit right there.
This is definitely someone's chair.
No, they're on.
There's nobody sitting there, darling.
I'm aware.
They're gone, they're gone.
Turn
We're
it
good.
around, because you're gonna face that. Oh, actually, more room. Okay. I'm so excited, girl. And I'm playing the CD, because I play that better than
If you want to
piano.
come behind us for photos, you're welcome to.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, come on behind us.
Yeah, you're welcome.
They'd probably rather look at you than us anyway. Be real. Yes, it's all right.
Ready, kids? Okay.
He was a famous trumpet man from out Chicago way. He had a boogie style that no one else could play. He was a top man of his craft, but then his number came up and he was gone in the draft. He said the army now blow to reveille. He's the boogie woogie bugle boy, Company B. They made him blow a bugle for his Uncle Sam. It really brought him down because he couldn't jam. In fact, it seemed to understand, because the next to the cap went out and drafted a band. And now the company jumps when he was reveille. He's the boogie woogie bugle boy, Company B. A toot, a toot, he blows an 8 to the bar. In boogie rhythm, you can't play a note unless the basic guitar is playing with them. He makes the company jump when he blows reveille. He's the boogie woogie bugle boy, Company B. He is some boogie woogie bugle boy, Company B. And when he plays boogie woogie bugle, he's busy as a buzzy bee. And when he plays, he makes the company jump and into the bar. He is a boogie woogie bugle boy, Company B. Doot doot, he blows an 8 to the bar. He can't play no unless the bass playing with them. He makes the company jump when he moves reveille. He's the boogie woogie bugle boy, Company B. He puts the boys to sleep a boogie every night, and wakes them up the same way in the early bride. They clap their hands and stamp their feet, because he knows he plays and someone gives him a beat. He really breaks it up when he moves reveille. He's the boogie woogie bugle boy, Company B. A toot, a toot, a tooty, he blows an 8 to the bar. In boogie rhythm, you can't play a note unless the basic guitar is playing with them. And the company jumps when he plays reveille. He's the boogie woogie bugle boy, Company B.
Very nicely done.
And
Spit out.
thank you for letting me teach her for 31 years, because I loved every minute.
Oh, well, if you want to teach longer,
I said that to her.
make it 32.
Thank you, you were wonderful.
That was awesome. Y'all need to do a flash mob of that in like Starbucks. Get everybody going. Wouldn't that be awesome? What do you think, Cloris?
I love it.
I love it.
Yeah.
Scott, is your presentation on music?
Oh, come on!
Ridiculous.
You better go through, Scott.
Hopefully it's a Let's just budget that in our
It was the Boogie Woogie budget from 2024.
I don't think I can pull that off.
Oh,
But I
you
guess
don't
that
know
means I'm
until you
probably
try,
up.
Leslie.
You are up. Thank you for letting them.
That was wonderful.
That was fun. I loved it.
That was good.
Thank
I
you.
didn't see that on there.
Yeah.
Not every group can do that, you know. Although wrestling might. I can try it.
Well, so I don't have any, totally shocking news. I try to keep you updated on what's going on, and state budget's not great, so our budget's not great going forward. So We have the May revise happened last week, and from that, so School Services California really put together, digest the budget and puts a pretty good presentation on for us. We spend half a day kind of going through it and getting all the information. I boiled that down into a few slides that these are actually from School Services, and there's a couple things on here that I will point out. So as I mentioned at second interim, we're not expecting a huge program cuts to education necessarily, but other parts of the state budget are definitely getting cut. And so they're kind of going through it right now, trying to figure out exactly how we're going to settle on the budget in June. But we do have a significant budget shortfall, and I'm trying to kind of plug that gap right now. So again, you're going to see a lot of cuts to other programs. K-14 education continues to, have basically a minimum guarantee. It's called Prop 98. It's complicated in the actual details of it, but generally it just says 40% of the budget is going to go to schools. So there is something that kind of funny is going on with the governor's proposed budget that we're all trying to wrap our heads around it. So he's trying to. So when we got our budget for 23-24, the state did not have income taxes. They delayed income taxes, so the state didn't really know what their budget was. But they gave us a number anyways, based on what they thought they were going to get. Well, so at the end of the day, that number was about $9 billion. They overallocate what they considered over-allocating to schools, about $9 billion. And they're trying to do what most people would consider, well, actually what they're calling it here is the maneuver, but essentially they're trying to rebench our minimum guarantee down to a lower level, as opposed to giving us those dollars, and our new basis would be on a higher amount. So I have a better slide to show that, but that's what is being referred to as the maneuver by the governor and the legislative analyst office, and a lot of other people are saying, that's really doesn't follow government code, right? You're kind of breaking the law there. So we're working on that right now, and actually there's even an announcement. I haven't wrapped my head around it today that the Governor Newsom and CTA basically said they came to some sort of agreement, but there's not really a lot of details out about that yet, so we'll see what that means. So we're still working on that. But so the three, as we're looking at the budget, the statutory COLA, the cost of living adjustment to our main funding formula, the LCFF, has been bouncing around over the last projections for the COLA for the 24-25 year. It's been bouncing around a lot. We thought it might be 4%. This is when we developed our original budget for last year. Then we started getting into the year, well, maybe it's going to be 0. And now it looks like it's settled at 1.07%. So that's been difficult for us, giving you guys projections on how to budget for a multi-year period. But right now, this is where we're at, 1.07. The maneuver is kind of that little green bar, not necessarily kosher. We're not believing, and a lot of people aren't. So we'll see where that settles. And then also, I'd just say right now, kind of some risk to the overall budget planning process is the revenue assumptions that the governor has isn't really in line with what the legislative analyst office believes. So we think the assumptions for revenues are probably a little aggressive from the governor at this point going forward. So when the governor came out with his budget proposal in January, he knew that there was a problem, right? State revenues aren't coming in like expected, so what are we going to do? They did take early action with Assembly Bill 106, and by reducing expenses by $17 billion going forward. So that was good early action, but we're about $50 billion in the hole, so that's still not all the way there. And then there's some other, so through some of these kind of early actions of some budget reductions, some borrowing, some delays and deferrals in different items, he basically saved or continues to have about a $27 billion problem. This is the maneuver I was kind of talking about. So they gave us 107 billion dollars, but they should have given us 97. Typically in that scenario, what they would do, and they've done this in the past, we've had budget problems before, they would say, okay, we can't pay it right now, but we owe you that 107. What they're trying to say is that we don't really owe you that, and we'll just kind of write it off. Well, we're not going to take it back for that 1 year, but we're going to take it out of your future year distributions. That's the big maneuver that we're saying, no, can't do that. I'm not going to get into a ton of detail, but I noticed I probably never shared the, really kind of the detail of what goes into the LCFF. So I want to hit that just a little bit. We get actually different funding for each grade span. So you see on the columns there, I have TK3, grades 4, 6, grades 7, 8, grades 9, 12. You'll see that, so essentially what we do is there's a different dollar amount associated with each grade span. And once we get our cost of living adjustment, we throw it in there. So we just put an increase to each of those dollar amounts. So you see the 23-24 going up by the 1.07 gives you your base amount per ADA. That's all in the red box. And you see it different for each of those groups. There are some add-ons though. And the add-ons, you get an add-on at TK3 because essentially we need to keep those class sizes lower. So they give us additional dollars to do that. They also give us additional dollars for the high school level. It's just more expensive to do high school. And then the blue box is really additional, what we often refer to as supplemental concentration dollars. These are additional grant funding that helps us take care of our more needy populations. So these are low income, foster youth, English learners. We get additional dollars to to provide services to support those groups. And then the bottom row is newer, the TK add-on. So in transitional kindergarten, it actually was implemented this year. There's now a requirement to have 2 adults in a classroom of 24 TKers. So they give us a little bottom line there is also that TK add-on to help pay for the additional adult. So that's kind of the how the sausage is made when it comes to the LCFF. And I just want to give you that detail.
Can I ask you a question real quick?
Yeah.
On the TK add-on, is that a para or is that an additional teacher?
Additional adult is the requirement. We use a para for most districts. That is what we do. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And then this is what it means for YCUSD Unified. So all that stuff on all those numbers on the first page, if you just average it out, it comes out to about $14,653 per ADA for YCUSD Unified. We're projecting our ADA, average daily attendance, to be 10,777, and so that's basically $158 million. However, that is a $5 million reduction from last year, so that's what we're grappling with when we're doing our budget for 24-25. And these are just a couple. This is just some of the assumptions that we use in our planning. Obviously, the top line is the COLA. This is because we're not in charge of our revenues. We're in charge of what our expenses are. But you can kind of see the cost of living adjustment for 23-24 was big. Expected for 24 at 8.2%. Small and projected in 24-25. And then it kind of, you see this averaging out. It's just projections of about 3% going forward. The other thing that has been a pretty significant cost to districts generally, but it's leveling off some, is the cost to support the pensions for our classified and certificated employees. So you can see the CalSTRS employment rate has leveled off at 19.1%. Now that could very well change. When it's changed by statute, the legislature. So there's no proposal for that to happen at this point. The CalPERS rate continues to go up. You can see those numbers just go up ever so slightly over the few years of it. It's 26.7 up to 29%. Payrolls are our biggest expense, so this is just an increasing cost that just affects our budget. Oops. All right. So this is not my area. This is Floris's area, but it was just interesting, I thought. You know, we are seeing, and actually we notice it just anecdotally from the resumes we get for teachers, the staffing shortage for teachers is getting easier, right? It was interesting, we had so much state and federal dollars, and every district, not just in the state of California, in the United States, was trying to hire teachers to provide additional services above and beyond what we're already doing with all this one-time money. It obviously didn't turn out very well for anybody because, we had all this money that we couldn't really spend in the areas we wanted to, and then it created a teacher shortage for every school district, essentially. That craziness is becoming less crazy. We still have those kind of our usual suspects where it's hard to find special ed teachers, math teachers, science teachers, but it seems that part of the crazy is getting better at this stage. Everybody, many districts, I would say most, are in similar situation to us. Revenues are going away, and many districts are also declining enrollment. So the whole state of California is. So it's less of a burden on hiring for teachers. This is, I thought, was an interesting graph. I've been talking to you about our situation as far as average daily attendance rates used to be a lot higher, and now they're lower. Now you can see, this is the whole state of California, the averages. So you look at the 1920, we were really in that 95, 96% attendance rate. And every district's really more in that 91, 92% rate nowadays. Now, obviously, it's coming up a little bit, but not a lot. I mean, it's gradually coming up. I think we're going to be using 92% ADA rate projected for 24-25, and we were using like 91.5%, last year for this year's projection. So, not a huge jump yet on that. And the roadhead, it's interesting. I didn't even that first line. I kind of think it was kind of funny, or the first bullet. So they call it this novel accounting technique. That's I think a nice way of saying it. It doesn't sound like illegal. And that basically any chief business officer will get fired over. So if I try to do this with our budget, that wouldn't really work out. I just kind of that last bullet, declining enrollment is a challenge for us. Increasing pension costs, and increasing liability premiums. So we're just actually getting our liability premiums. I'll have a call with our provider this week actually to see what those are. But we're seeing a lot of liability issues when it comes to sexual, not our district necessarily, but districts in general that are covered by insurance, sexual and abuse molestation cases. So that's putting a big strain obviously on the liability side of things. So we're expecting our premiums to go up significantly on that. Anyways, that's the May revise, and we'll be presenting our budget here in the first June board meeting.
What a happy ending though.
Sorry. I know this isn't necessarily just in your purview, Scott, but what are we doing to make sure, number one, kids who are still living in the area but haven't returned to school after COVID, whether they've decided to, if their parents have said, okay, they can do distance learning for the rest of their educational career or what have you. I mean, do we have numbers on those, on that? Kids who were enrolled pre-COVID, during COVID they decided homeschool or distance learning or independent study or whatever it is, they're not coming to school.
Well, they would have to be enrolled in another program, so that is the case where we have students and our records being requested by another school, whether it's a private school, a charter school, another school out of state, somewhere in California. So that's one way we have to try to locate and see where they are. Are there probably, and I think every district is saying that, are there some kids who may be out there that can't find? That was the case, but we've started to have kids slowly return, but kids and families did choose alternative ways for education. So you did see some of the distance learning charter schools grow in capacity, and they've kept some kids. Some of those kids are starting to come back. So that's an interesting, because I was gonna say, Scott, on your slides, you talk about the ADA, and then we talk about enrollment. So the impact on ADA is not just we have because our enrollment is actually higher than 10,000 students. However, it's the absences and the frequency by which kids are absent make up the whole ADA picture.
Well, absolutely. So we're getting hit on two sides, right? So we have actually the declining enrollment, and of those kiddos, we have less of them coming to school. So that's the kind of the double whammy that.
But our decline in enrollment isn't 10,777.
No, that's 80. That's what that's actually, that number is actually our funded ADA,
Correct.
which is not even our actual ADA.
So when you look at our current numbers, if I ran an enrollment report, which is different from an ADA report, we're over 11,000 kids in the district.
Yeah.
And so we have kids who don't come to school. And so you see a lot of them going.
It just seems to me like, a small amount of money, comparatively speaking, spent on trying some type of enforcement. And I know we've tried carrots until they're, I don't know, we've tried to sweeten the pot to get them to school until they're almost diabetic. So maybe we need to look at some sticks.
And that would be referring those students who are chronically absent to the SAR panel and then
Yes.
on to SAR court.
Yes.
I have to check CalPads a lot when there's a student that's not showing up, and we've had to, they're a truant and they're not coming. It's like, where are they, or did they register somewhere else? So we're constantly checking CalPads to see if they have enrolled somewhere else.
What's that system?
That's the state system.
Correct.
Everything is
Every student
reported
has
to
a number,
CalPads.
And they track and going to the home. So we have our school resource officer, our probation officer, our truancy officer, our social worker. So we're going and actually knocking on doors.
Do we actually still have truancy officers?
We still have one in the district, Casey. Yes. So she goes out and will visit those students who are seeing a pattern of absences, and very often they're not residing there any longer, and so we're trying to track the family down.
Okay. I just thought, spending a little bit to try and recoup would save us a lot in the long run.
So each of the principals is charged as part of their evaluation and goals is to get their attendance up.
So the success rate for tracking those students down to be door knocking is not.
Sometimes it works, sometimes we're able to, and sometimes we're working with the family, and it's understanding some of the barriers of why kids aren't coming to school. We assume sometimes it's just they don't want to come to school, but there are other reasons why kids aren't coming to school. They're working to support their families, there are just a whole lot of situations. They don't have shoes to come to school. And so we do our best to remove those barriers and get them back into school. But you hear a lot of this.
Yeah, there's a lot of kids that are doing the K-12 school online, and they've just found different places to go.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate.
Thank you. Moving forward to comments from the public on items not on the agenda.
We're done.
No? All right. Our student performance. There are questions on the consent agenda on, I believe, it's C and H.
Yes, I was curious, so on contracts and agreements,
Let's see.
that is C, I'll go chronologically. Under the district office, just curious about the $43,000 for the National Inventor Hall of Fame. What is that for the district office?
It's a summer enrichment materials, so I assume summer school program perhaps.
It's page 1 of contracts and agreements.
National Inventor Hall of Fame, Summer Enrichment in 2024 materials.
So the national inventor is the that's the vendor, right?
Yeah, that's for summer school. That's for enrichment program that we do.
Okay. Okay.
It's an educational program for.
And then what is CalShape maintenance? That's probably you, Scott.
Yeah, that's probably, so I don't know specifically what that actual item is, but but we do participate in a CalShape grant that they actually they provide I think the people to do the work, and so they inspect our HVAC units and that kind of stuff, but we have to provide some of the filters and some of the materials. I think that's what that's about, but I can't tell you for sure exactly what that's about.
And then, thank you, I appreciate that. I normally try to ask these beforehand, but because of the 3-day weekend, I just wanna
I probably wasn't
apologize for that.
answering, so.
But I do read your Friday letters, I do see the thing in bold, I totally get it, I know.
All
Just
good.
wanna recognize you for that.
If I know the answer, I will.
I do try to ask these questions in advance. Okay, the other thing I wanna say is, H, hey, listen, if you haven't read H, I highly recommend it. It was excellently put together. I love all these Title I school, the SWP, I read them, so I just had a question, and I guess this is for you, Tino, because all of these have, great root cause analysis. You can tell it came from a lot of different input individuals. It's just the kind of thing I personally love to see. As far as people, boots on the ground, teacher, that sort of thing, looking at the problem and developing a measurable action plan. That just makes my heart happy. The only thing that I didn't see in any of these that I had a question about, because every single one of them listed academic achievement and improvement as being one of their action plans and listed several different ways they wanted to do that. But all of the ways that they said they wanted to do it was with bringing kind of the bottom up, right? Which I feel like 80% of the time we're talking about the bottom, those like yellow red zones, right? And we're trying to bring them up, one more, which I get, I understand. But if you're bringing up academic achievement, we can't ignore the green blue, right? And I didn't see anything on there that was like, hey, we want to improve academic achievement. And if you're improving academic achievement, you're not just trying to get the bottom up. We want to get the up even higher and I know we have achiever programs, we have our dual enrollment, we have our early college program and that sort of thing, but I know there are some star students that, and I guess I'm just wondering why, and maybe it's, anyway, you can explain it, why that wasn't in any of these action plans. Like, we want to get the upper tier even higher and exposed to even, right? Does that make sense?
So it's the school-wide plans are specific for Title I, and so there's two types of Title I programs. There's targeted assistance, which we had 6 of our schools on. So targeted assistance is where you have to identify specific student groups, like for example, these kids, foster youth, for example, or homeless students are struggling in math. And we have a small percentage of homeless students, and so that school, let's say for example, Lindcrest, they would have to write specifically to get money for 25 kids who are homeless, and that was targeted assistance.
Okay.
And so school-wide, which we're doing now, means it's for every single student in the campus.
Right.
So yeah, but they have to, in their comprehensive needs assessment, they actually have to target the most struggling subgroups of the campus to actually get their root cause analysis.
So that's just for this funding source,
Yeah,
right? So
just
we
for
have,
Title I.
We have other funding sources for others, so this is for the struggling students.
We also have Title II, Title III, and Title IV. And so, but the benefit of this is actually it's for improving the entire educational program of the entire school. So it actually benefits your high achiever, your middle achiever, and your low achiever.
Well, those two things don't count, again, they're saying different things.
Well, and I think that, again, it's a funding source, and so this funding source is generated by students who are identified as low socioeconomic, and so it targets those students who are the struggling students. That's the intent
of the funding, Title I.
Thank you. I was
Yes.
like, the intent of the Title I fund.
Okay.
But you'll see, like Scott shared, and someone just rattled off the different funding sources. There are other funding sources, and you'll see in the LCAP, there are some of those things built forward, again, because that is what the stakeholder groups or the education partners will say. What about our blue and green groups? And so you'll see GATE programs and our early college program. So you'll see those funded out of a different funding source.
Okay.
And this is a benefit because it's more flexible to use this funding
for all kids.
And
But they only want to get stats on the socioeconomic below.
Well, not just
even though
any of the unduplicated students, any kids who are EL students, any kids who are economically disadvantaged, homeless, foster, the kids who are traditionally in our testing in our state are the lowest achieving students.
Right, and it is intended, that funding source is intended to close the achievement gap between our students. So that is why the funding is in the way, the design of the intent of the funds is written the way it is.
I just know our culture, as a culture, we don't wanna stagnate or ignore the higher performer and just be like, okay, well, you're good on your own, sit there and read a book. And we're not also, so I just wanna make sure that's it, that's all I have.
Thank you. With that, could I have a motion on the consent agenda?
I make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
On a motion by member Ciocciola and a second by member Lamb. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? President Dami is still absent.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you. Moving forward to action, 14A, expulsion, suspended contracts, and readmission.
Make a motion we approve as discussed in closed session.
Second.
On a motion by member Quilty and a second by member Ciocciola to approve as discussed in closed session. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Moving forward to 14B, first reading for proposed revisions to YCUSD board policies.
Thank you. As I shared, I'm bringing the policies back as a first read, and I am seeking feedback in the first read. So new language is underlined, old language is struck out. So the difference is, so if it's struck out, it was in our previous policy, it's being struck out. There is one out there, as much time as we put in, there's still one piece that was incorrect. So member Ciocciola, you asked about option 1 and option 2. Option 1 actually was the actual option in the previous Yuba City Unified Board policy. So that should have been the one identified because option 1 would be the recommended based upon the previous policy that we had. The board review, if there was an appeal related to, and it was in our former board policy, was about instructional material.
Right.
So under the UCP, if there was a dispute and the complainant did not agree, the recommendation would be option 1, moving on to CDE for review, unless the board chose to make a change in that option.
Well, personally, I would like to not go to the CDE. I would like to keep it in the board. That's 1/7 vote for me.
Right. Now, was it helpful in terms of the underlines?
Oh my gosh.
So much better?
Yes, I read all 59 pages.
So you tried.
Thank you. It was, so at least to me, anyway, I'm only 1/7 of the readers, but yes, I would like to thank all those involved with that for that. And so I do have some questions, but I'm gonna let, if anybody else has questions first, I'll let you guys go.
I don't have any questions. Anyone else have any questions?
I'm ready.
No.
Am I the only one? Okay, okay, all right, well, you guys are much smarter than me, so my first, okay, so there's duplicate language, right? So if you go to page 1, right, this is the duplicate language that's duplicated throughout. The district program's activities shall be free from any discriminatory use, selection, or rejection of textbooks, instructional material, library books, or similar educational resources, and the subsequent paragraph, right? So that just keeps getting cut and paste. We're at 410, but it's also there in 61.11 and 31 or 1312.2. I mean, it's just cut and paste. I guess so.
Are you referring to in the index?
No, I'm in the actual.
Okay.
Well, I'm getting into it. Let's go. I'm on page. Sorry about that.
Okay.
I'm not on the index. I'm in the actual
policy.
Yes. I actually, just full confession, I didn't read the index this time.
Okay.
Okay, but with the page 1,
which policy are you referring to?
I'm at 410.
Okay.
So I just wanna make sure I understand this. Moving forward, it's saying we can't, as a board, we cannot reject or prohibit a book or instructional material based on contributions of an individual or group. Yes.
Correct, that is what that is. So the policy is saying is there's conditions by which the board cannot reject instructional materials in curriculum and textbooks.
But based on a group that's in the textbook.
Well, yes, so you cannot discriminate against an individual, a class of individuals based that's in our textbooks, in the curriculum, and the content.
Okay, but policy 61.11 which is, sorry, scrolling, I believe that's closer to page 59.
Selection and evaluation of instructional materials.
Yes, that does more of the detailed language with regards to, yes, here it is. If you're on your Granicus, it's page 36. No, it's not. I'm a liar. Okay. Oh, no, that's unlawful. Oh, sorry. Okay, where is it? Oh, no, it is. Yeah, that is. So then getting, okay.
So I believe it's page 40, the policy itself is page 48 of the packet. Well, I'm looking at the packet, my apologies.
Yes. There it is, 61.1. There it is, okay. So that one has more detail. Again, it's got that on page 49. But I just wanted to double check because it does say, I wrote in my notes, that, okay, I apologize, I wrote the wrong thing down here then, because I can't find my note.
So 61.1 is the actual selection and evaluation of instructional materials policy.
Yes.
So there may be more detail related to
Sorry,
the board's role.
Okay, I'm just gonna pause there because I wrote it here and now I can't access it, so I'm not gonna waste your time by scrolling.
Any other questions?
Oh, no. With regards to that, my next question is on policy, that same policy 410. Yeah, they're going back up, yes. Page 3, the third page of 410. Second to last paragraph, just curious as to when it's talking about superintendent or designee shall ensure the district provides the appropriate auxiliary aids and services where needed, right, for disabilities and that sort of thing. So individuals, just a curiosity, individuals with disabilities shall notify the superintendent and principal has been crossed out and designee has been replaced. So just curious why, if I'm a mother of a disabled individual, why I wouldn't, who's the designee if it's not the principal on our LEAs?
Well, it could be
the principal, or it could be an assistant principal,
most
it
likely
could
would
be
be
a
the
counselor, it could be.
But it's just not detailed,
well, because that also limits when you just say principals, so it
I
doesn't,
see.
it could be Tino, it could be,
Any other administrator
Yeah,
or
exactly.
counselor or
Right.
something like that.
Anyone who could provide the service, I would imagine, would be included in that, and you don't wanna limit it just to the principal because
They're not always there.
that puts way too much on one person's plate when it could make more sense to go to somebody else.
Sure, okay. I'm just coming from a parent's perspective, like
No,
if I'm
yeah.
enrolling my kid, like
Right.
I wanna be able to go on site to the person
To
and
know
not have
who
to go
you
through
can-
red tape, or, that was just the question there. Is that it wasn't, that we weren't like, taking anything
No, we're not
away from the local
no, they can,
sites.
no, not
Okay.
at all.
The other question I had was with regards to 1312.2. The superintendent or designee, it's kind of in the middle of the page so I just wanna make sure I have this in my head. So this is our complaint process for instructional materials, right? So we've got the informal complaint, which is, they go to the principal, right? And then if it's not handled appropriately, then then they have a formal complaint process, which we have the accompanying documents there and understand that, and then it goes to, and so there's a lot of cross out here, I just wanna make sure I understand our new policy. So then we go to, or our community would go then to the review committee, but then there's that second line after step 3. So you've got your formal complaint, right? And then from the formal complaint, in the formal complaint, the principal notifies the superintendent or designee But then under step 3, under review committee, it says, the superintendent or designee shall determine whether to convene a review committee to review the complaint. And then it just says, if the superintendent or designee determines that a review committee is necessary, and then it kind of stops there. Do you see where I'm at? So then so I'm just trying to understand, because that's
It doesn't just stop, so it goes down, so that
Or
was,
it
I
is-
did the same thing when I was
Sorry.
reading, so.
Oh,
it go-
the
it
superintendent or
goes-
designee shall appoint a committee.
Correct, so it keeps going down, so that's why you'll see the crossouts, so you have to keep reading down, so there's crossouts,
you.
but they're.
So then the question I would have is just in practicality, walking through that. So the formal complaint, and then it goes to you, correct? And then you are the one deciding whether or not it needs to go forward to a committee. Under what circumstances would it not go forward to a committee?
I doubt that would happen, because if there's a complaint, I mean, it would be,
Right.
there may be something that I determine I could explain to a parent.
Yeah.
So that could happen, but
Which would answer all
generally,
the questions.
right, it could be, because that happens, that does happen when we have complaints where the parent has filed a complaint, we explain something and there's no need to move.
And they're like, oh,
Yes.
like me, you explain it because I don't understand. And I go, oh, okay, thank you.
That does happen.
Okay, thank you. Okay, a couple more.
Okay.
I'm
ready.
And then, okay, so 5145.3, page 35, second to last paragraph.
51.
So now, board members, we're on non-discrimination harassment. Okay, so we don't discriminate, right? That's 410, that's multiplied, we don't discriminate, and then we do the whole list of the things we don't, our culture is, we don't discriminate, right? That's the whole non-discrimination policy. The beginning of this paragraph says, because unlawful discrimination may occur when disciplining students. So, including suspension or expulsion, the superintendent or designee shall ensure that the staff enforce the district. I don't even understand why this is in here. It's like saying, hey, here is the law, here's our culture, but because it won't happen, right? But because people are not gonna do that, here's the stipulation, rather than saying, because it says, because unlawful discrimination may occur. And culturally, I have a huge issue with that, because we've already said we don't discriminate, right? So what is the thought behind this?
Well,
Am I making sense?
No.
No?
No.
Thank you for that. So it's
Not
like,
following.
because it says, because unlawful discrimination may occur when disciplining
Well,
students.
it may occur.
It's just saying
But we've already said multiple times in our policy that we don't do it.
But it's human error. I mean, it may occur. So if it does.
So I think I attribute it to, it's similar to a law. We say that you don't speed, but people speed.
And should you speed,
Yeah.
but not saying because unlawful speeding may occur. All right, maybe I'm splitting hairs there, but it looks when I read it, that looks accepting. Look, we don't discriminate, but because it may happen, here's what we'll do. That's all.
I think that's an important stopgap, though.
Well, and I don't disagree with the stopgap. What I disagree with is the wording therein, where it says, because it's gonna happen, because it may happen.
It may happen. I think that's a really important
But
word.
if it happens, like, should this happen, right? Anyway, it's a standard, it's a culture thing. It's, we won't, we don't, and if it does, here are the disciplinary, here's the response. Like, we don't, we don't discriminate. Therefore, but if it does happen, here are instead of because it might happen, all right. But it's okay, if nobody else sees it, then it's just my crazy. Then I just have one more, equally, okay. And it may not be, and look, I wanna just, I just want to preface this. I'm on page
Which
39, 61, 43 courses of study. It's a duplicative thing. And this is, and you all know me, and you know this is a button for me, and it may not be something we can do. But this is the instruction shall include the early history of California and a study of the role and contributions of all genders, Native Americans, African Americans, Latino Americans, Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders, European Americans, LGBTQ plus Americans, persons with disability, and members of other ethnic and cultural, and I have a little highlight thing, I can't read that word, and socioeconomic status groups to the economic, political, social development of California and the United States, with particular emphasis on portraying the role of these groups in contemporary society. So, and then of course it lists an ed code, which I'm guessing this is a cut and paste from the ed code. This is like what we do. But personally, as a 1/7 voting member of this board, when you subcategorize it's like they're Americans.
Mm-hmm.
And studying the contributions of Americans of all.
But by saying all, okay, just speaking from a public school perspective, I have a history minor. When you say all like that and you refute and you don't delineate each specific group, what ends up happening is the only thing kids get taught is the old dead white guys.
Well, then that's not accurate history.
I know, but that is the reason for this, and I think we are not yet there as a society to omit each individual subgroup. I think it's important that they are all there so that we are all conscious that those are subgroups that need to be recognized for their contributions.
Well, and I think they should be as well.
Right.
What I'm saying is I don't want to segregate, like when do Latino Americans, when do Native Americans and African Americans, Pacific Islanders just become Americans? How many hundreds of years do they have to have roots here before we just say Americans? They are already included, all the subgroups, but by sectioning them off,
but by
it's
saying
another
they're
kind of
already
segregation.
included, you're ignoring the fact that they have not been. They have not been taught. We have not, I lived in Oklahoma for 9 long years. I never knew about Greenwood until recently.
Right.
And I lived around
I can't
the
speak
Tulsa
to
area.
Oklahoma.
No, but I'm
just
just
talking about
saying,
our own culture
but
here.
That's very typical of education. If these groups are not specifically recognized, they will not be recognized.
So you're saying that, I'm not talking about the country. I can't do anything
No,
about that.
I'm not.
I'm talking about
I'm just talking about
YCUSD.
education in general. If we do not recognize each individual group for their contributions, the history books will not be rewritten. The literature taught will not be, it will not be as inclusive of other groups that have contributed massive amounts of materials. Unless we make a specific effort to include them, and the only way we can make a specific effort to include them is by naming them. And I know it goes against your grain, but that is the way it really truly is.
Okay. You're saying that's the way it is at YCUSD.
Yes.
Because I can't,
I'm saying
none of
that's
us can do anything
not just-
outside of
right.
this sphere.
Not
We
just
can only deal-
YCUSD, but I'm talking about textbook writers, I'm talking about curriculum creators, I'm
Right.
talking about the entirety of the educational
Well,
system
we can't.
as it pertains to YCUSD specifically.
Well, I'm only talking about the board policy because
Okay.
that's
But that's
our
why I think it's
culture.
important to keep it in the board policy.
Because Yuba City Unified won't recognize and won't teach accurate history without the detail.
Well, I mean, if for some reason we were to take that stance, at the end of the day, it's based on the ed code, and as you acknowledged at the beginning, the ed code does include the verbiage, so.
Yes.
Okay, then I guess my question is, like, what are we doing here? Voting on board policy if the ed code is just spitting out from the intellectual leads are spitting out ed code to us and telling us we will do this. What is the
Well, I
point
mean,
of
there are
accepting the board code?
Plenty of
the board
purviews,
policy.
or not purviews, areas of board policy that we could discuss in more nuanced and locally specific fashions, but I mean, for this specific docket we have on the agenda today, it's largely based on changes in law and updating to reflect the trends in law. And so yes, at the end of the day, these are largely written by lawyers probably and based off of updates in ed code. So.
And ed code isn't legislative, that's coming from the CDE.
No, ed code is passed by the legislature.
Okay.
That's democratically elected.
So that, yes, thank you. Yes. So, okay. And secondarily, as a sub-point to that, I mean, personally, as a lover of history, you can't study American history and not study Native American history, the contributions of Latino Americans, like that is our history, regardless of what skin tone you had no control over being born as. Like that is our history, and I would hope that I can't do with anything there, but our culture here in Yuba City is that we honor the contributions, the actions of individuals based on what they did and not based on where they came from or what color how much melanin they have in
I
their
just
skin.
have to say, and I know there was some frustration with the AB 1078 in 2023, and I don't mean any disrespect to any governing board, but there have been governing boards in California who have tried to ban certain textbooks because it reflected historical information, because they were opposed to something, and I'm not gonna elaborate, but that is something that's a reality, and unfortunately, these new laws were put in place because of that. And again, there's everyone has various opinions, but that is it is the reality that we're dealing with. That I appreciate what you're saying is that you appreciate the historic information and contributions of every person in our society. That is not necessarily how all boards are reacting.
Okay.
Thank you. I mean, if there's no further comments or questions.
First read, I'll bring it back.
Thank you again for all of the edits, I appreciate it.
If there's any need for further clarification, please contact me.
Thank you.
All right, moving forward to 14C, intra-budget transfer resolution.
This is a routine annual thing, actually probably should have been in consent, but anyways, this allows us to do what we have to do to essentially close the books. So often there are, when we go through closing the books and we have to recategorize different expenses into different categories. So this allows us to do that with this board resolution.
If there are no questions, can I have a motion to approve 14C?
So motion.
Second.
On a motion by member Ciociola and a second by member Lamb to approve 14C, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Member Dom remains absent. Thank you. 14D, replacement information technologies aging vehicles.
So I tried to give you some information in the staff report. Essentially, over the last couple of years, we've transitioned to more of a slightly different model in our technology. We help people through remote, through the phone help desk, and also through teams that go out and support the different school sites. We have some older vans that we've been relying on to do that, and this is a year where we really had a lot of kind of the last of some of the one-time money and also carryover from the local control funding formula. So we had about close to $14 million that was unspent that we carried over this year. So this is a great technology support is in the LCAP, and as we're kind of getting close to the end of the year, it's like, okay, so everyone on track to spend everything. This is an area that we had a little room to do these purchases. It'll support, again, the technology support that we're providing for the school sites, but also it will set us up for the future because, we won't have to continue to maintain these 20-year-old vehicles. So recommending that we move forward to spend these budgeted one-time carryover dollars in technology.
Just a quick question. Is there, and I appreciate our vans are getting old, and I can remember driving a van down to Sacramento to a PD thing. It was a rattle trap, but so I get it. But when we're spending these monies, I always wonder, isn't there some like classroom expense or something that would actually directly impact kids? Some way to spend some of these monies on that?
Well, I mean, most of the LCAP is spent on that, so this is, you know, these are kind of things, you know, that, so most of it is spent on that. You know, this is spent on technology support that directly benefits students and teachers.
I
understand what you're
absolutely
saying,
get that. As a technology moron, I get that I need help helping kids. So I totally understand that. I just always like to make sure that the dollars are spent as close to the classroom as possible.
I get it, and I think, you know, most of all our LCAP is spent on dollars that directly affect kiddos, but there are areas that are indirect.
Right.
Transportation's one, food service, and
Right.
technology. All is classified for
It
us.
all works together.
We all support the teachers to hit their own run, right? So that's what this is about, yeah.
I'm sorry, Shelley. My only question is why are we entering into a lease agreement for these vehicles?
Yeah, so that's a good question. It's an easier way for us to do a few things. First of all, we already use Enterprise. We lease several vans. Actually, the vans were the white vehicle vans are what we mostly lease right now. Also, we lease some trucks and maintenance. So that was put into place prior to me getting here. In looking to, you know, and working with our rep, this is a way for us to, we actually purchase them. It's kind of a
Rent to own type of thing.
We basically pay everything. We put such a large deposit on this, we're only leasing it for like $1. But Enterprise, and through Enterprise, they use the government contracted pricing, so it's a publicly bid pricing for government agencies. And they also provide a ton of services to us, monitoring our fleet, helping us, with our kind of gas cards and all that kind of stuff. So they also help us sell the vehicles when it's time for us to do that part of it as well. So, which is difficult for a school district to do because we don't have the ability to do that easily. So they provide a lot of support services that really help us manage our fleet. So that was the reason to go through this. But it doesn't cost us more, we get the government pricing.
Okay, because you mentioned we've had our current fleet for about 20 years, is that right?
Yeah.
But that wouldn't be the way we would do this. We wouldn't pay cash for this and then have them for 20 years because it's leased.
Oh, so this is not a typical lease like that you're thinking of, like like a 3-year lease. You only could put like 12,000 miles on it. No, this is no, it's not like that. So we don't have any restrictions on it. They can help us sell us, and we just get a credit to it towards the new purchase. It's almost identical to buying it, to be honest with you, except they help us with a lot of different services as well. We're going to put the entire dollar amount that I put there, we're putting as basically a down payment on a lease. So there's not really going to be much of a payment on these. It's just they're going to help with all the support services I need for gas cards and monitoring the fleet, helping us sell it, and helping us utilize the government contract. So there's a lot of services that they help with.
All right.
Can I have a motion on 14D?
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
On a motion by member Quilty and a second by member Pretty to approve. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Not hearing none, the motion carries. Moving forward to 15, board reports and information discussion.
I have one thing. Recently, Mia and Owen Sargent both at different times asked to interview me, and I know they interviewed Wanda as well, or at least Mia did. It was just amazing to be back on campus talking to kids, and let me tell you, it did nothing to assuage my desperate missing of teaching. So anyway, it was really fun. They asked some amazing questions. Mia's was all about attendance and engagement, and Owen's was all about mental health. And I know that we have a large packet sitting in front of us from Mr. Loomis, and I know for a fact that all deals with student mental health, which was one of his great causes. And as he's retiring, I think he's hoping that it will not be swept under a rug.
And it's
somewhere.
not, and I
know that, but I did. Owen was aware of it. It was part of some of his questions that he asked me, and it was just, me mentioning this was twofold. One, just to give a shout out to some really
amazing kids,
super amazing kids, and how great it is to be on campus
I agree.
interacting with them. And then secondly, the mental health issues. So there you go.
Thank you. Anything else? I would ask, I would throw it out there. I doubt anyone will take me up on the offer. I've had a lot of difficulty attending the city charter school meetings first Wednesday every month. If anyone's interested.
Wednesday, I totally would. I'm a nerd, but I can't on Wednesdays.
All right.
Can you ask
Well-
them to move it? You have not because you asked not.
You can zoom in. I zoomed in a couple times.
Oh, I haven't asked that.
Yeah, you can zoom in.
Do I have to have my camera on?
No, because I zoomed in and I didn't.
Okay.
Are we talking about?
Good to know. All right. Moving forward, written communications from the coverage we have in the. Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Maybe it's after comments. There'll be comments. Comments. That's it.
Comments from employee representatives.
Good evening, board members, anybody out there in the audience anywhere. I'm Dina Lukens, President of the City Teachers Association. A couple of items tonight. I appreciate the lateness of the hour. In tonight's approval of 3 vans for the IT initiative that moved the IT support to a centralized location as opposed to site location. I know when that initially was implemented, there was lots of concerns as to whether or not it was effective. I would like to encourage us all to continue to look at when we put new initiatives into place, such as centralizing IT services or purchasing new furniture for every classroom to meet the new district standard, that we continue to ask, is it working? Is it doing what we hoped it to do? And are we gathering feedback to assess whether or not it's well received by those people who are using those services? Because I think there are issues that continue to, ones that we should address. I'd also like to appreciate Board Member Pretty and Superintendent Asumi's recognition of publicly of the efforts of Mr. Loomis. That mental health initiative that he spoke to us about so many times is critical to our students. If we don't address their mental health challenges, it is impossible to educate them. So I do hope that that will move forward. He had some very creative ideas as to how it might get funded. Our school counselors are not trained in delivering mental health services, so there's a difference between academic school counselors and mental health services. And I recognize that in many ways we think, well, that should fall under, health, public health, but there are kids, so anything we can do to help address their mental health needs would go a long way in helping them be more successful in our classrooms. I'd also like to appreciate Assistant Superintendent Bentley having to follow the Hopefully Bugle Boy with all his great news. I recognize the challenges of navigating our district budget in these state budget times. The governor's May revise, when it initially came out, lacked the usual detail we see. And then in further details, yes, I appreciate your careful characterization of the maneuver. I also appreciate that CTA's ongoing advocacy for our students in our public schools in California includes advocating for adequate school funding. And I do believe that CTA is working diligently to address the maneuver and ensure secure funding for public education. There is nothing more important to the future of our state and our nation than free, quality public education, and that is not cheap. And then we are in negotiations tomorrow, and I appreciate that given the money uncertainties of our state budget, our district budget, that a final agreement that addresses money may be delayed beyond tomorrow. as we expect that there'll be more information with the final budget from the state, as well as additional information that will come out of the unaudited actuals in September. Nonetheless, we do hope tomorrow to make progress on other issues that go beyond money in our contractual negotiations. I'd like to thank you tonight for your board recognition of our retiring staff here at Yuba City Unified. I especially appreciate our principals taking the time to come tonight to personally recognize those folks, because they can tell us stories that nobody else can about those people. So I really appreciate our site administrators for coming to do this. And then finally, I'd like to tell you that this is the end of my 34th year teaching at Yuba City Unified. Linda Robinson alluded to the love affair that is teaching. Shelley alluded to it as well. I have loved this work. During my 34 years at Yuba City Unified, I did 28 years teaching at Yuba City High School. During that time, I earned a master's in chemistry with a thesis on developing a conceptual, connected chemistry approach. I earned my national board certification twice. I have worked on the Golden State exam as both a writer of the exam and a chief scorer for that statewide lab-based assessment that goes far beyond anything we can do now with computers and multiple choice. It actually had students engaged in doing lab, interpreting lab data. I am proud of that work. I have continued to reflect and refine my practices. Every summer I have left thinking about how can I make it better? What can I do differently? Every lesson I teach, I'm like, next year I can revise it to do this. This year I didn't do that. As I anticipated towards the end of this year that I would not be at Yuba City High School next year. Enrollment projections being what they were, staffing being what it was, I had already volunteered with Principal Olson to resolve the surplus in the science department at Yuba City High School by volunteering to be displaced. However, recently, CTA has funded full-time release for me, so next year I will be full-time YCTA and no longer teaching at Yuba City High School. So that brings a certain amount of sadness for me, as I have absolutely loved this work and teaching our students chemistry to love it, to see it everywhere, to change the way they view the world by recognizing that there are these individual particles that we can use as a model to explain so much of what we observe. Has been my passion and my life's work here at Yuba City Unified. But I look forward to serving the district and our students and our staff in a different way next year as a full-time YCTA president. So thank you.
Thank you. Moving forward to comments from board members.
I have one. I went to Tara Boyner's open house. It was amazing. It was like full and tons of families, like when my kids went there. You know, it was just, it was so nice because it's dwindled and it's coming back, and they had food trucks and so many people. I visited Mr. Booth's class. It's a CTE class for 7th and 8th graders. Great teacher, amazing stuff. Some of the current career modules he teaches them: dentistry, design and marketing, electricity and electronics, flight and drone technology, forensic science, nursing, personal finance, welding basics for these kids to explore in his classroom. It's very cool. He wants to get it to go down to maybe some lower grades, implement some lower grades. But he was so fun to talk to, and wow, Tara Buena was hopping, and it was awesome to see. So many parents with their families there. So it was nice. Anyway.
Thank you. Any other comments from board members? Comments from the superintendent?
No, I appreciate that. I have heard and I saw for myself some of the open houses. They are packed, and I think the principals and staff have worked really hard to figure out ways to get more parents involved, and I think it is returning to back in the day when our kids were in school. So, thank you. We are heading into graduation season. It is going to be alive and well next week. Lori has sent out where you have signed up for the promotions for 8th grade and then graduations Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday nights. Also, for the next board meeting on June 11th, I just want to go over, there will be the superintendent's evaluation in closed session. There will be the LCAP for first read, and also the public hearing for the proposed budget will be on June 11th, with the 25th being the adoption of the LCAP and the budget. So if there's anything else that you would like on the agenda for the 11th?
Really wait.
I just wanted to write that.
Me too.
With that, our next board meeting is June 11th, with open session starting at 7 p.m. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So motion.
A motion by member Ciocciola and a second by member Pretty to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned.